Hello, avid listeners. So, you may have noticed that, unfortunately, I was absent from this particular podcast due to an unfortunate curse that I now have to live in Japan. But don't worry, because I will be joining you this week with a segment I like to call Ben in Venezuela, featuring me, Dave, in Japan. So I'm going to talk a little bit about classic Japanese curses and the delights thereof. So after doing a little bit of research, it turns out the majority of the most well-known curses in Japan stem from tiny straw dolls and nailing them to what is known as god trees in shrines. So a god tree, to give you a bit of background, is actually quite a bad translation from Japanese, because the original term is kami, and kami are actually very different from gods in that they are spirits with powers that interact between our world and a spirit world. So they're very different from your classical Western style god worship. But that aside, if you wanted to curse someone, you would need to do it after the hour of midnight, but before 3 o'clock. There's quite a limited cursing window every night. And the most common of these types of curses are scorned women. So basically, if a woman is upset because her husband or partner have been unfaithful, or from some cases just generally pissed them off too much, they would make one of these little dolls. They would go to a shrine at the appropriate hour and then nail it to the god tree. In theory, the practice behind this means you have to keep on nailing it until the person is dead. So I don't quite know how that works out. If you have like a relay system where someone is on the phone to you telling you, no, they're still going, try a few more times. Or if maybe you bring them with you and then just keep on going until they're like, oh no, I'm feeling that now. And then you know you're on the right track. So yeah, you would nail it to a tree in the hope that they would die because they did something wrong. As, most curses seem to be. The dangers of doing this are, of course, you get the time wrong, because after 3 o'clock, I believe it mostly changes to being good things. So if you maybe don't realize it's daylight saving hours and you go too late in the night, suddenly, oh no, you're actually wishing them all the best, and you're getting kami to go out there and help them. So that could be a slight backfire. There's also the chance, because you have to wear a special ceremonial sort of robe attire thing as you are walking to the shrine, if you meet anyone else on the way, there is a chance that they will get the curse instead. So you might accidentally try and kill the wrong person, which is a bad side effect. There's also a chance that if you do it wrong, or if the kami are like, nah, we think you're maybe doing this for the wrong reasons, then you, of course, might end up becoming a demon, or oni, as the Japanese call them. So, curses in Japan, they're quite risky business. In fact, anything that involves nailing something to something else in the dark naturally carries the risk of hitting your hand with a hammer. So there's always that downside to it as well. Escalating from that, not so much of a curse as a sort of purification kind of ritual. Still using these straw dolls. Sometimes villagers would actually nail a doll to a god tree still, in the hopes that the kami would take away the wrongdoing of the village. So in this instance, the dolls would represent anything bad that the people of the village had done. And if it was accepted, then all the bad things would be taken off into the spirit world by the kami to just sort of linger out of harm's way so that people couldn't be judged for it at a later date. Which seems like quite an effective judicial system. Like, I did something wrong, I'm going to nail it to a tree, and if the higher powers are okay with that, then, we're good. Otherwise I will still have to deal with this problem. I'm guessing more often than not they still have to deal with the problem. But that's, by the by. Because then if that doesn't work, there's always the deluxe, super extreme version where you replace the doll with an actual person and nail them to a tree instead. Because nothing says, please remove all of the problems and pains of the village than nailing a person to a tree. Because there are so many places and times when that's just gone so well. So again, if the kami were okay with that, they would take the person and the pain and all the wrongdoings into the spirit world, and if they didn't, I guess you just had a person who was quite upset nailed to a tree for a day or two. It doesn't really say if there's like a time frame that you knew it worked in or didn't work in, so you take them down, or if they just stayed there and everyone hoped for the best. Like, oh, they've gone quiet now, that's probably a good sign. Which, for a culture that was quite advanced in medicine back at the time, this sort of stuff came about, because we're looking at maybe 2,000 years ago for the first instances even of this. Medicine was obviously not keyhole surgery levels, but they seemed to know a moderate amount about the body. So for this to still be a practice is a little bit surprising even back then. And to top it off, I've been reading that in Kyoto, the practice of the dolls to try and curse someone is actually still alive and well, although a bit of a taboo subject if you try and corner any of the Shinto priests about it. So, dating in Japan, a little bit more dangerous than you might have originally thought. So anyway, that's all from me, and this has been Ben in Venezuela.